FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
We're back on the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry Lutz. With us now is Jerry Robinson. And, well, we've got a lot to talk about. Gold and silver today broke through key resistance levels, or at least they broke whole numbers. Jerry, welcome back. How are you?
Great to be here, Kerry. I'm doing great.
Good. Well, hey, so what'd you think of the performance today? Well, I should say the date. Whenever they make key advances, we should tell you the date. It's June 19th, 2014. And let me pull up kitco.com. I just have to get off your site for a second, Jerry. And it is 2:30. And forget about the Kitco fix. That's such Jesus, Jerry. As we were talking, gold is up $40 the ounce, $1,318. It didn't just go past $1,300. It blew past it. And silver is up to $20.85 the ounce. It's up almost $1 the ounce, 95 cents the ounce. I mean, we're not just talking about a little technical breakthrough. We've got shorts that are like literally reaching for the cyanide now, really like the JP Morgan is like asking for their firstborn at this point, breaking down the doors, taking the collateral, what's left of it, rehypothecating all the rest. I mean, you got serious advances happening here. And the worry has to be here, Jerry, that it's going to be a breakout advance, uncontrolled panic upside advance, which will then break down, which is what they really want to happen,
Yeah, well, technically on the chart, we're looking at it right now at silver, for example. We have a system that gives buy signals and sell signals on this stuff. And last Friday, we sent out a big email to our subscribers, giving them both a buy signal on gold and silver, both on Friday. And it has really turned out to be good. Now, long-term buy signal, we're still waiting on. And I think we talked about that last time. We have seen gold and silver pull back so sharply that they have actually done something on the chart that we haven't seen for years and years and years. So for those who missed the very first major leg up in gold and silver, who really kind of kicked themselves and said, I wish I would have bought back in 2000 or whatever. Well, we really believe, and I know this sounds maybe insane considering where the prices are now, but we really believe that we are nearing another opportunity just like 2000, where we're going to see another explosion in these prices, and they're going to go to new levels that you and I can't even comprehend right now. And so we really think that for people who want to hold this long term, that is coming. There's going to be a great entry point for that nice big second leg as people begin to wake up again as to what's really happening. But on the short term or the near term, we gave a buy signal, and I think this is probably going to run for some time. It seems to be that the Fed really confused some people who were expecting to not see gold and silver rise the way that it has. And as you mentioned, the bears on this have to be just, very upset. But even in the stock market as well, I know that there are many bearish people on the stock market. And while I count myself among those long term, in the near term, you cannot argue with the trend in stocks either. So you have everything going up. Oil going up, 9-month high. You have gold and silver now rising very nicely, look great on the chart. You actually have some major moving average crossovers happening right now, which means that the rally is probably going to stay intact and continue even higher from here. And then you also have stocks doing the same thing.
When you say moving average crossover, I assume you're referring to the fact that they crossed their 200-day moving average, right?
I am, but I'm what I use for a short-term trading. This is one of the simplest things people can do if they just want to trade real simply with moving average crossovers. Is use a 10-day simple moving average and a 30-day exponential moving average. And the buy signal is when the 10-day simple crosses through the 30-day exponential. That's the buy signal, and that's happening right this second on silver. It actually happened today. So because that happens, the 10 and the 30-day, and because so many traders out there follow that system, it's almost kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy if you simply buy it on the 10 and 30-day cross. And then your sell signal happens when the 10-day goes back through back down through the 30-day. So right now, the 10-day is just now touching and crossing through the 30-day on silver. On gold, we're seeing it's not there yet. It's almost there. So gold is not as bullish right this second as silver is. But as soon as that touches, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because these traders around the country and around the world, they use these moving averages as their entry points. You can almost just kind of copy them and make money with that 10-day, 30-day cross. And that's really for short term. The 50-day and the 200-day cross, they call that the golden cross or whatever, or the death cross. And that is much more for a longer term kind of buying and selling. But 10-day simple moving average and a 30-day exponential moving average has been one of the most powerful trading techniques we've used. And silver's showing that right now. Yeah,
well, silver, you got to look. I don't want to get into Elliott wave theory because I'm not a full-blown, I don't totally buy into Elliott wave, put it that way. But, this concept of 2/3 retracement or 1/3 retracement, there's definitely something to it. Silver, went up to 50 an ounce and then it went back to 20, even less. And it basically went back 2/3. So, and then it's been, for 2 years, basically fighting at that level. So it's really poised to be the far better performer than gold over the long term, no question. And it's been just at this resistance level for so long. And now that it's broken through that $20, if it goes up and it breaks through that 22 and 23,
all bets are off at that point. But you got really, really solid support here at 1875 around that area on silver. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty low risk if you were to step in now and buy it because really only have about $1 on the downside.
No, I totally agree with you. But on the other hand, it could break down tomorrow. Sure the Fed could go into a panic state and start selling unbacked contracts into the COMEX and drive it down to 18 or 17 something. This could happen. We've seen it happen.
That's the unfortunate thing about trying to trade gold and silver or even oil because they're so obviously they're fixed, but also the geopolitical influences can cause those prices to not behave well on a chart. They just kind of move according. So it kind of has the same effect as a bad earnings report on a stock. It's one of those things that you just can't control. Yeah. So when it comes to those gold and silver and oil, we tend to not really focus on trading them. We just buy them and hold them for the long term. And I tell you, I think a lot of people who are not in gold and silver right now, this is another perfect opportunity. Entry point to get in before the world wakes up. The world's going to wake up to this, Kerry. They're going to figure out what's going on. I mean, they're already beginning to, and we've been saying this now for 3 or 4 years. We probably sound like a broken record.
Not because you and I haven't told them enough here, no, Jerry. Right?
That's so true.
I mean, if you haven't bought it now, it's not because you haven't been listening to Follow the Money or to the Financial Survival Network.
So true.
And I always said you should average up and average down. My feeling is buy quarterly. Okay, you buy quarterly or you buy monthly. So you're not going to catch the bottom. So you're not going to catch a falling knife, and you're not going to buy at the top either. So if it was at 27 an ounce, which it was for a while, and you started buying quarterly and you split it up into 5 quarters, you know what? You're probably at the 22, 23 an ounce range, which you're not that far off from where it is now, right?
No,
I mean, don't you tell people to do that?
Yeah, and let's go back to gold for a minute because I'm looking at that chart, and there is a ton of resistance, overhead resistance at about 1295 right before you get to the 1300. Yeah.
And then we just blasted right through it today, but they could be back tomorrow, right? Selling off those contracts. And don't be surprised if they are. And then they'll say, profit taking set in, right?
Right.
How many times have you seen that one, Jerry?
Uh-huh. Yeah, good old Yahoo Finance will have a good headline about that, I'm sure.
Profit takers push gold prices lower. And I like to puke on that one. I've seen it so many times.
Well, now you've got now moving the stocks, you've got the S&P now breaking out to all-time highs, flirting with 1960. And again, I mean, this is amazing what's been happening on the S&P, and there's no doubt about it that the Fed's targeting the stock market. We've known that for some time. They, through the grapevine, I've heard 20,000 on the Dow is what they've been targeting, about 2250 on the S&P, and they're really going after this because it creates that wealth effect. People open up their 401k statements and say, oh, wow, look, the recovery really is taking hold. Look, I made 8% this quarter.
How bad can things be?
but forget the fact that they're paying 8 to 10% more for meat, 8 to 10% more for poultry. Forget the fact that they're paying 8%. Everything's going up, not just the stock market.
The gas prices.
Yeah, gas prices, oil at 9-month highs, gold and silver going up. Now, they cannot hide this inflation, and they continue to say that the inflation rates are low. But when you look at just the basic numbers that are coming out and just go to the store, I mean, you see these prices, and here's the fear, Kerry, that inflation is bad. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We don't like inflation at all. We don't like hyperinflation. But that's not the major problem, I think, for America's future, because inflation only occurs when you have a whole bunch of outstanding money because all these people demand it. The problem is that this demand for all this currency cannot be sustained forever, just like the British Empire lost their ability. So as the demand for this currency goes down, guess what happens to the supply of currency? It has to also go down. And if you decrease the supply of currency within the system, then you can't have increasing asset prices. It goes the opposite way. So you have deflation.
Yeah,
exactly. And so we're really enjoying these higher prices now on the stock market and these higher prices that we're seeing everywhere. I mean, everybody seems to be thinking they're not that bad. But the truth of the matter is that they eventually pop and then they fall. And that's the worst. That's the absolute worst.
Not enjoyable, but we'll talk more upon our return on the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio.
Warning, you might live in a no constitution zone. It's the shocking story you won't see on TV. Depending upon where you live in the United States, you may no longer have constitutional rights. Politicians are quietly squeezing the middle class to micromanage you and extract your wealth. Want to see how? Watch the free video at noconstitutionzone.com. Soon, you'll have the last laugh by using these cultural contraband tricks and profit like a king. That's noconstitutionzone.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
We're back. I'm Kerry Lutz, Financial Survival Network. We're talking with Jerry Robinson, FTMdaily.com. So, Jerry, we got a couple little hot spots in the world. Ukraine versus Russia. That's escalating out of control. I mean, little vandalism of a pipeline, little terrorism takes place just to show Russia that, yeah, you might blow up our country, but we can blow up your pipelines. And then we've got Iraq, which is literally just imploding as we speak. All that money, all those lives lost for nothing. Looks like we're going to go back in there in some form. And no wonder the price of gold and silver are going up. And the only wonder is why hasn't oil gone up another $20 or $50 a barrel?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a general hope here that this is not going to go the way that most analysts think it's really going to go. And Iraq's an absolute mess. Absolute mess. You have in the north, you have the Kurds. They are flirting with obvious independence. They've already retaken the city of Kirkuk, which is their de facto capital. And then they're selling oil out from underneath Baghdad. So they're selling oil up there in their area. They're selling it off to Turkey. Turkey, for a long time, is one of the Kurds to rejoin them and create a brand new autonomous state. But of course, that would be a very difficult thing for Turkey and mess with their territorial integrity as well. So you have an issue there. In the middle of Iraq, you have the Sunnis going wild. And of course, Saudi Arabia is funding ISIS. I mean, this is well known. I mean, even the mainstream press is saying that Saudi and Qatar and Kuwait are doing this. The Kuwaitis, by the way, have such a loose financial system and a banking system. They're the ones who actually are the ones that funnel money out to these areas. So it's the Saudis and the people in Qatar and Yemen and other places will actually pool their money, take it to Kuwait. Kuwait actually delivers the money to these rogue radical regimes like ISIS. And ISIS is right there smack dab in the middle of Iraq, right there in the Sunni area where the Saudis want a foothold. The Saudis now are telling the U.S. and Britain, don't you dare enter Iraq. This needs to be sorted out by the Iraqis. Now, it's so funny how the Saudis are so temperamental. First, they want us to invade Syria. Now they're saying don't enter Iraq. How come? Because they're funding it. They're the ones who are funding it. And of course they want a big portion of Iraq for themselves, because then it gives them a nice little perch right there to keep Iran in check, right there in the middle of Iraq. And of course, down below, you have, the Shia area, which Maliki is running the Baghdadi government down there. And now they're talking about, kicking him out, as you've well seen, and moving on to something else. But Obama's speech today, when he came out and talked about it at the White House, apparently he met with his advisors. They're talking about options for increased security assistance in Iraq. And among those involved sending about 100 troops over to work as a team of quote unquote advisors. And what they're really saying is that they can't get any intelligence. They can't bomb. They can't do airstrikes in Iraq. And the reason is because they don't know which ones of these ISIS thugs are theirs and which ones aren't.
Yeah.
So they have to send a team of advisors over to find out, okay, who are the bad guys really and who are the good guys? And that way they can do surgical airstrikes. Because if they just start lobbing bombs on these ISIS guys, now they're going to kill their own guys.
Well, this reminds me of a song by Judy Collins. I think she did this song a while ago, Send in the Drones.
Right. Right.
Send in the drones, And it's just a mess of our own creation. And it's further reason why we need to go back to 1913. We didn't have a standing army. We had a bunch of state militias, and they were there to put down riots occasionally when the natives got a little too restless and a little too drunk. And, the currency was backed by gold, had the greatest period of growth in our history, and everybody stayed out of everybody's business. The central government was, relatively speaking, very weak. And, we didn't have a Federal Reserve. We didn't even have an income tax. And things just worked a hell of a lot better in retrospect than they do today. And I think as a people, we were a lot happier. Although you couldn't go to a local fast food restaurant and get a Big Mac, a double Big Mac with cheese. And, things were just a lot simpler and a lot better.
There was a gentleman the other day on one of these podcasts, and he was saying something along the lines of how he wanted the Fed to be ended. It was an in the Fed kind of show. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then he goes on and talks about how we needed to go in to the Middle East and finish what we had done in Iraq. So he was obviously a neocon. He was a neocon who had seen the light on the Fed. But see, that's the problem. Because if you see the light on the Fed, but you're still a neocon, what happens is you end up in a really big quagmire. Because what people don't realize is you cannot continue to wage this warfare state without the Fed. So you can't be in the Fed and let's bomb countries. I mean, you can't do both. You have to do one or the other. And that's when people say in the Fed, what they're saying is end the warfare state.
And the welfare state.
And the welfare state, because the Fed is what props it up.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see. And we've even seen the same thing like on Fox News. You're starting to see Fox News even challenge some of these long-held preconceptions. Like Megyn Kelly just had Dick Cheney on. And she gave him a hard time, which, stop the presses. Hold on one second. Dick Cheney got a hard time on Fox News. What's happening? Well, what's happening is these Republicans are scared to death. They know they've got to distance themselves from this Iraqi mess. So even the folks at Fox News are trying, to wake up. But I haven't heard them talk about ending the Fed at all. And I think you and I continue to point to that 1913 as that pivotal year that was such a destructive thing to our economy and to our country, and so few people fully understand it.
Hey, we got the Fed and we got the income tax, and it cleared the way for prohibition and Big Brother state nannyism, state-sponsored nannyism,
World War I, the Great Depression, the whole 9 yards.
You name it, World War II, and a host of other wars that have pretty much been nonstop from the early 20th century to the present time, and show no signs of stopping now.
When in doubt, blame the Fed. When in doubt, blame the Fed.
Well, you
Just blame
usually be pretty safe doing that,
Right.
you know?
You sure can.
I mean, think about it, because look, the last guy who paid for a war out of gold, out of current reserves, was Napoleon, but he had to sell off Louisiana to do it.
That's a great point.
And the reason why he did it was because he came on the cusp of hyperinflation in France. That was how he got his toehold in France. And the first thing he did was balance the budget and restore fiscal sanity. Now, at what price, you might say, because it's argued that he was the first incarnation of the Antichrist. I'm not going to get into that quagmire myself, because the religious nuts will come out of everywhere. But
Don't you know that the Antichrist is King Charles? Isn't it King Charles?
King Charles, I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to get into it because that's not my area of expertise, debating the incarnations of the Antichrist. Suffice it to say, he definitely had his evil side, Napoleon, but he did balance the budget. He paid for his wars with gold, as opposed to England, which printed up the difference because they had the Bank of England and they'd already figured out how to finance wars printing up paper. So the price that France paid, aside from all the blood and treasure that got wasted away on Napoleon's wars, is that they sold Louisiana to the United States, the Louisiana Purchase, and the U.S. paid gold for it, and the war got financed. But there was a point to all this, and the point was that you can't pay for wars out of future tax revenues with deficits, because
Can't do it forever.
Yeah, because then the people have no stake in the outcome, and they have no sacrifice.
Well, just think about that. Just think about back in the 40s when they actually had, they actually had rationing going on. They actually imposed, quotas on things, and you could not just simply borrow money and fight wars. You actually had to sell war bonds. I mean, people actually had to say, like you said, you had to sacrifice that terrible S word.
Yeah, guns and butter, Johnson. We could have a war and not sacrifice. Everything will be fine. And, that type of attitude led us to where we are today, where we don't even know. Ask most of the people, they didn't even know that we're having a war in Afghanistan. Theoretically, the war in Iraq was over until now. And, look where we are. Not in a very good place.
No, you look at these countries like Afghanistan and Iraq, where we have been at war, and the people, like you said, they don't know about it. And then if you ask them about it, they say, yeah, and blacktop the roads while you're there, because they're not paying for it. Or they don't feel like they're paying for it. Of course they're paying for it, but they don't feel like they're paying for it.
Paying in inflation dollars.
Yeah, exactly. And this whole thing unravels. I mean, I think people smell, they know that there's something wrong, something smells funny. Especially with this whole Iraq thing, and we're going back to Iraq. People are starting to say, wait a minute, and that's stirring up the hornet's nest about Bush and about the lies about the weapons of mass destruction and the lies about how it was connected to 9/11 and the lies about how Saddam Hussein was this, this person that was not a good thing for Iraq. Was he good for Iraq? Well, I don't know, because when you think about it, I mean, even Dick Cheney, back in an older interview we're going to play on our show today, actually made the statement that you can't get rid of Saddam Hussein, because what happens if you do? Well, the whole place falls apart. How come? Because he's the strong man. And without a strong man in Iraq, you have absolute chaos. And Bush knocked out the strong man and then walked away. He walked away.
And now that's why we are where we are.
Now we got a crazy situation. And everybody blames Obama. And I get the whole political thing, because, Obama's easy to hate. He's been a pretty terrible president, from most people's perspectives. But my gosh. I mean, let's realize that both Republicans and Democrats have got us here.
Two worst presidents we've ever had back to back, and let's not make any excuses for either one of them. They're deplorable, they're disgusting, and no excuses, no party alliances. Down with the parties, forget about excuses. Anyway, Jerry, tell us your website, tell us where we get your software here, and
Yeah, folks can they can just Google us, Follow the Money Daily, or they can just go to ftmdaily.com. There they'll find a ton of free resources, a free daily podcast, free email we put out every single day. And if they click on our store section, they'll find a wealth of products, some that are as cheap as $4.95, and of course, per month. And then we have some that are much more expensive, all depending what they want. Currency trading ideas, ETF trading ideas, stock trading ideas, gold trading ideas, and much more. So all there at ftmdaily.com. And they can always call us if they want to, 800-609-5530. And any questions they have, we'd love to talk to them.
All right. And the link is on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com site. And don't forget, sign up for the newsletter. We'll talk to you again real soon, Jerry.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Good to be here.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.